Thank you. Thank you guys so much for that wonderful round of applause. Thank you very much. I am here today. I am going to introduce myself first. So, my name is Keith Watts. I am a dual certified chemistry and physics teacher who's been teaching for 28 years now. Thank you guys. Love you right back. I am the 2008 Alachua County High School Teacher of the Year. Currently, you are making me feel so good today. Thank you guys. So, when you look at this, I've been teaching at GHS since 2006. Over the past decade or so, as a teacher in the Cambridge program, I have had students year after year after year who have basically scored high score in America. I had a 5-year run pre-pandemic where every single year this school had a student who would finish with high scores in America. It's not for lack of Cambridge programs. There are over 100 Cambridge programs in this country. It was that we figured out a way at GHS to teach to understanding. And that was the thing I focused on. Almost every single one of those top scores, many people would think those were juniors, those were seniors. Those were not juniors and seniors. Those were freshmen. Those were sophomores. Sophomores, freshmen who were taking advanced physics classes. In the Cambridge program, which some of you may not be as aware of who are watching this, Cambridge is like an international baccalaureate program. It is the way that the British education system works. So there's pre-ACE classes. ACE 1 classes tend to be like AP 1, ACE 2 tend to be AP 2, and then there's AP Physics C level, which you would do beyond that. When I was at Bradford in a previous part of my career, a wise man once told me, if you really take biology and boil it all down, it's nothing but applied chemistry. If you take chemistry and you boil it down, it's nothing but applied physics. If you take physics and you boil it down, it's nothing but applied math. Well, math is something that you've been learning all your life. You started learning math even before you went to school. Once you get through enough math classes, what that does is that builds a toolkit. So, when you look at this, what I'm here to talk about today is a program that has been going on for a lot of years, but is going to seem new to a lot of people, and that is called a Physics First curriculum. Now, I can see this Physics First curriculum in my own life. When I was in high school, last century, way long ago, my high school decided on a pilot program. When I hit the 11th grade, my high school decided what would happen if we took a group of kids and we put them in physics and then put them in chemistry the next year. So I was one of the ones who volunteered for that program, little science nerd, of course. After that physics class in 11th grade, I walked into chemistry in 12th grade, and every single thing that that teacher put on the board, I looked up and said, oh, yeah, this is an extension of what we did in physics last year. I understand where this is going. I see where you're going, Mr. Durkin. So when you look at that, it's going to seem like a new approach. This is certainly not a new approach. I also saw this in my life when I went to college. As I entered UF in 1989, I began as a nuclear engineering major. As a nuclear engineering major, I had spent 3 years doing that, taking a lot of physics classes, getting into my engineering curriculum. But as I went through life, what I realized was something very important, that I really had a love of teaching. And I didn't care what it was that I taught, whether it was teaching swimming lessons as a lifeguard, teaching my wife how to drive a stick shift, whatever it was, doing tutoring on the side. Teaching was something that I was very passionate about. So as I realized that, I thought, well, why am I getting a nuclear engineering degree to go and be a high school chemistry or physics teacher? So after my junior year at UF, I flipped back to the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and I became a chemistry major. So as I'm going through UF in my major, what I discovered was as I started to enter these chemistry classes, even at the college level, whether that was organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, physical chemistry, even up to quantum mechanics, so many of these things were explained in my previous experience as a nuclear engineering major. I started then to really put together that ultimately that wise man at Bradford High School was absolutely right. As I went through that chemistry degree, I excelled because I understood what was going on behind chemistry. It wasn't just a, memorize this, memorize that, which too often is easy to reduce things to in education. Now, how do we put this into high schools? First thing that we are going to see in high schools is that almost every state has a state biology exam. There is no doubt that we will always have to teach a biology class in the 9th or 10th grade to meet state accommodations. And that is certainly never what I would talk about replacing. And I will say, as a physics, chemistry person, I've always been jealous of biology because it is the science that has a unifying theory. Evolutionary theory unifies biology in a way that no theory can yet bring quantum mechanics and relativity together in physics. So in that, it is very important. My main thrust for talking about doing a physics-first curriculum is that when we're looking at getting kids into more advanced sciences, there is a way that we've always done it. We've gone biology, then chemistry, then physics. Well, that way has wound us up in the upper teens, 17th, 18th in the world in science. In math, we're in the 20s, 26th, 27th, something like that. In a nation like this, that is simply unacceptable. We are richer than that. We are better than that as a nation. And if this way hasn't worked, and empirically, this way is not doing what it needs to do, I propose that we go with a different direction. So, when I talk about a physics class for 9th graders, there are 9th graders that I have had who will start out in advanced physics classes, ACE Physics 1, ACE Physics 2. But for the most part, you could do a very simple introductory physics class that is largely a conceptual class. And I have done those for years. That is what the British education system calls a pre-ACE physics class. So when you actually look at a pre-ACE physics curriculum, it doesn't have a lot of math in it. What it does is it teaches the physics concepts. Next, the kids will take that advanced physics class, ACE Physics 1, ACE Physics 2. Then we can take those concepts. Then we can take all those cool things that we did labs on. Then we can put the math to them. Physics is the most observable of the sciences. You can watch that ball roll down the inclined plane. You can watch that compressed spring launch a ball up into the air. It is absolutely observable. It is very easy to do the lab work on when you come right down to it. Now, how would this help? Well, for 20 years, I've been recruiting 9th and 10th graders into physics classes, whether that be pre-ACE, ACE 1, even ACE 2 classes. If you look at this, let me give you a couple of examples of where I believe that this will be so strong and so helpful in the future. The first one is gas laws. If you really look at gas laws, for a decade I taught chemistry, and I would teach kids Boyle's law and Charles' law and PV equals nRT, the gas law and the ideal and all this other stuff. And I would get kids again and again and again who were curious, who would look at me and say, well, what is pressure? What does temperature mean? Why do I have to use this weird Kelvin scale? Why can't I just use Celsius? In fact, many of them would ask me why we can't just use Fahrenheit. That's another story for another day. If we look at this, why in a chemistry book is R given as joules per mole Kelvin? Yet, nowhere in that chemistry book does it really explain that a joule is a unit of work, that a work is a force over a displacement in the direction of that force. They're just asked to accept it. I asked kids to accept it. Look, just memorize the formulas, do the math, it'll be okay. They did. Absolutely, I saw it again and again. Now, did that really help them? Well, it helped them to pass that test, but a lot of them did not retain that information. Look, I will tell you, as someone who's gone through a lot of education, I have memorized a great many things in my life, and very few of those things do I even have left in my memory bank right now. That which I know today is that which I understood at the time. That is where I am coming from with this entire philosophy. So, for instance, pressure. When my kids would ask me what pressure was, am I to explain to them when they've never had a physics class that, yeah, you see, this particle comes in, it hits the wall, and it bounces off the wall in a perfectly elastic collision. There's a change in momentum. What's momentum? Well, yeah, that's another physics concept. We'll get to that. But that change in momentum over an area is a force divided by the area. That is what creates pressure. That's the explanation of pressure. That is why a gas exerts pressure on something. No different than my feet are exerting pressure on the floor below me as I start to see that. So when we look at that, these explanations are behind this. Kids should be rewarded for curiosity, not be told, as I told them, that don't worry about it. That's not relevant. It is relevant. Every single aspect of this is relevant. So we look at the units of pressure times volume. Boyle's law, P1V1 equals P2V2. If you multiply the units of pressure, newtons per meter squared, times the units of volume, meters cubed, you get newtons times meters, which is simply units of energy. What is a gas law problem? Well, it's a conservation of energy problem. Did I have a unit in my chemistry book that explained that? No, not in any way, shape, or form. Again, just memorize the formula. Get your calculator out, do the calculation, come up with your answer. Well, again, for many of them, that simply was not an acceptable thing. That was taking away a lot of the curiosity that I saw in my students. And in that is something that I have tried to bring back as we have seen this grow. Now, I will also say that I have seen this over the years, since I've now spent 20 years at GHS. I can now look at this and say, I've had kids who were in pre-ACE physics and pre-ACE chemistry at the same time. It would turn out that in my curriculum, I would get to gas laws before the chemistry teacher would. My kids would come back after I had taught them gas laws and talk about how in chemistry class, they were basically teaching their friends how to do all the gas law problems before the teacher even introduced it, because they were so good at it and they understood it from a ground level. That understanding built into being better at that. It built into understanding these concepts, and that continued on. I have been asked for 20 years to track my former students to see, as these 10th graders who have done advanced physics classes, where have they gone? What have they done? And when our current Cambridge coordinator came in, I was asked to look at just a random class to see, what was the score distribution? How had physics kids done? Because again, I'm explaining this concept to people. And I looked at one particular class. In the Cambridge program, it's not like AP. In AP, you get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or 5. But you don't really get any kind of a score distribution that's easily identifiable. With Cambridge, they give you a score between 0 and 260 points for an A-level exam. So I took the scores, and yes, a shout out to my statistics people out there, I cut that right in half. So I looked at the top half of the scores, which was a little over 20 people, and the bottom half of the scores, which was a little over 20 people. What I discovered, I know it's great, isn't it? What I discovered was this. I saw that on that top group, all but one of those students had had an advanced physics class before. ACE Physics 1, ACE Physics 2. When I looked at the bottom half of that physics class, what I found was that those were kids who had not had physics. Now, is the evidence anecdotal? Yes. Do we need more research to go on throughout this nation? Of course we do. But when you look at that, I had seen that year after year after year, that the kids who had been exposed to physics were just generally getting higher scores, and many of them that I was tracking years ago have since corresponded with me to tell me that they are majoring in engineering, they're majoring in chemistry, physics, they're becoming doctors, physician's assistants, things like that. Now, there are going to be difficulties with this. The first difficulty is a difficulty that every human being has. I've always done it this way. We've always done it this way. Why should we change? Well, there's the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right now, it's broke. And it needs to be changed. And that change is going to require time. Now, it is going to require some other things as well. In a lot of ways, the notion sometimes is that science is a zero-sum game. That if you take kids from one, if you get kids in one science class, another science class is losing. The one message that I have always tried to give is this. Taking those physics classes ahead of chemistry classes doesn't take kids from chemistry. What it does is it produces kids who are more ready, who are more able to excel in that chemistry class, who will now better understand what those chemistry teachers are teaching. I've had the good luck of teaching with some of the most amazing chemistry teachers that I have ever met in my life. Teachers that might have blown the chemistry teachers and even some of the professors I had at UF clean out of the water. But every teacher should want students that are better prepared. And that is really what this has to offer. Another problem is this. There is a lack of physics teachers in this nation. We need to put a concerted effort to try to bring more people into the realm of physics teaching. And that can be difficult sometimes. Over 40% of the high schools in this country do not even offer physics. It is a crying shame that we are in this place. Those kids largely are being denied the ability to go on and do things like engineering. You need that background in high school. In college, they're going to expect you to have that background. And if you don't, that's why you see so many people as freshmen at any university who say, I'm going to be an engineering major. And by their junior year, they're like, I'm going to major in anything but engineering. They didn't walk in with the background knowledge. They didn't walk in with the ability to understand what was going on. If they did, they would still be an engineering major. They would be an engineer today, or a chemist, or a physicist, or whatever it is that they wanted to be. But that's the real thing. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is this. Right now, more than ever, what we need in this country, what we need in this world is a shared reality. Science is that shared reality. When you look at science, this is something that we can all agree on. These are backed up by numbers, by research, by peer review. That is what is going to move us forward. What is going to solve the problem of microplastics? What is going to solve the problems of climate change or whatever else it might be? Science is going to solve those problems. We're not going to shoot three-pointers our way out of it. We're not going to throw touchdown passes. As much as I love sports, I am not thinking that that's going to solve it. Science, technology, creativity, that is what is going to solve these problems. And the only way to get better at science is to understand science. And when we do better at understanding science, we will see our world rankings go up. We will see everything about our world improve, and that is the world that we are leaving to you. An old adage says that we do not inherit the earth. We borrow it from our children. We are borrowing this planet from all of you right now. And we need to do a better job of stewardship. And understanding science is the place that we need to go with that. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great day, everybody.